Reporter Lehana Tsotetsi attended the media briefing and he now joins us in studio. Lehana, very interesting day. Take us through exactly the main pointers that came out of the special conference of the ANC NEC.
I think firstly, let's put it that today's meeting was actually to look at the roadmap that would lead to the conference, and secondly to look at the issues in KZN. We'll remember that in September, the court nullified and declared null and void the outcomes of the KZN PC. But then this created like a disbelief within the ANC itself, because they felt that the court could not tell them on how to apply a certain section in their constitution, which is 17.2.1. And they felt that they needed clarity. But in needing clarity, today, Gwede Mantashe, the Secretary General, mentioned that they will have to appeal, because they had 15 days to lodge an appeal. Now, they are going to seek legal opinion within these last 3 days in order to be able to set an appeal to the court against the judgment.
Now, what happens after the 3 days? Is 3 days enough? And in terms of going forward, what does it mean? Basically, in terms of the PEC of KZN, where does it stand now?
Now, the court has ruled that it's null and void.
Yes.
Now it means it's not there. But according to Mantashe, the PEC remains in position until the appeal. You know, it's either rejected or they just don't come through with it. So it means for now, the PEC, according to the ANC, it stands, and then the appeal, if the appeal wins, then they'll have to carry on with the PEC. Because Mantashe says they need a legitimate PEC. And as a result, they don't want to look as if they are downplaying or undermining the judicial. So in this case, they will have to wait, and then after 3 days, we'll know what the outcome is.
And then what happens if the decision is that the decision by the courts stand and they lose the appeal?
I think this will have a negative impact on the coming conference, especially looking into the fact that KZN is the largest province, and their impact could be felt in the conference, which might have probably negative consequences depending on what their expectations are of the conference. So for now, I think it's a bit risky that they should lose the case, because it might impact negatively.
Now let's speak about this decision by the mother body and how it impacts on KZN. You mentioned the fact that it is the biggest province with regards to the standings or the numbers for the ANC. Now, what does this mean? Will this decision by the mother body unite? Do you think it will unite the ANC in KZN?
I think following the tension that was brewing in KZN, where you had a group which was saying they are not going to listen to the NEC. It's not the NEC which was going to tell them whether to appeal or not, but they will take their own direction. But I think in this case, the aim is to unite the region. So I believe that if the appeal goes through, this will have a possible effect on the discussions between the two groups, which seem not to accept the fact that the NEC should be the one that tells them whether to appeal or not. The outcomes that they are expected are positive outcomes.
Now, in terms of going forward, there's a very small time frame going towards the elective conference in December. Now, everything that's happening with regards to the differences within KZN and not really or coming out, because the decision on the appeal by the KZN leadership, the PEC at the time, was literally a day later, and it was more of a reactive decision. Do you think both parties, or the party that went to the courts and the current PEC, so to put it, do you think this will work? in terms of going forward, ensuring that they work together towards building the ANC? Because just to move away from this particular NEC that took place earlier, some of the impacts, for instance, we saw the resignation of ANC MP Dr. Makosi Khoza, and there was an issue of the resignation letter where she emailed her resignation letter, and her standpoint is the fact that there is no leadership within the KZN. You know, the impacts of you know, the court decision and what the mother body has decided going forward.
I think if you look at the Dr. Makosi Khoza's resignation, well, the Secretary General actually downplayed that, saying they are not going to take a cue from Khoza as to what to do. But the main thing is that whether they like it or not, there is a need that they should forge unity. Because as I said, if they fail to reach this kind of unity, the consequences might be very negative going to elective conference. So Mantashe promised that they will do everything at its best, and they are also going to set up a task team that will look into the issue. I think, if you're not mistaken, it's a 15-member task team comprising of top officials or officials within the party that will go to KZN and bring the two groups together and then try and sort out the differences.
Will it be enough, the task team?
Well, they say it will be enough, and it's up to the ANC to see if they will really reach their objective.
Now, with all this that's taking place within the ANC, we've seen a lot of branches or going to the courts. For instance, the other day it was the ANC Youth League saying they also going to the court. You know, is the ANC ready for the December elective conference, or do they need more time?
Well, when they talk about it, despite all the mess that we're seeing, the fightings and the killings, which in some instances these killings are attributed to greed and materialism, the Secretary General says they are doing everything at their best to make sure that there is a peaceful conference. And he actually decided, or not decided, he actually became very, very clear that whatever that has been happening, or whatever what we see happening within the ANC, will not at all impact on the conference.
Now, in terms of, from your perspective and having been there, take us through the atmosphere and, the feeling among the members who were present to say, what was the mood like? Was there tension, or was it more of a relaxed environment where people were coming together to ensure that they make the right decisions for the organization?
Well, unfortunately, we never had an opportunity of actually going into the hall to see the delegates, how they were, chatting to each other. But to those that we spoke to, they sounded very positive that a better solution will be found. So I cannot really put it in full terms that, or in full ways, that the atmosphere was okay, because we were also limited. We are confined to a certain area, not to be able to mix with the delegates. So most of the time we just seen them as they come in and out, and as you know, it's not even easy for some of them to talk to you. They would always say, no, things were fine, things are fine. But from the look of things and the time in which they spent, because we arrived at 2, though they said the conference might be delayed, but we arrived at 2 and we ended up at 6, and one could tell that it was not an easy decision to come to. There must have been lots of debates, and there must have been issues which, even though the ANC downplays it, there must have been issues which are not settled.
Now, in terms of the process of assuring that the roadmap to the national conference taking place in December, and they go through a process of auditing of the provinces and the different regions. You've been doing this a long time and going through a lot of the NEC conferences. Seemingly the only province that's outstanding is the Eastern Cape. going forward in terms of the auditing. The impact of this, was this tabled by any chance at today's conference?
Yes, Gwede Mantashe made reference to it, though no much details were given, but just made reference on it that very soon they'll get that sorted out.
And the branches that there's still maybe no decisions taken, or there's still wrangling within those branches, what are they supposed to do in terms of going forward, and the time frames? There's been limited time frames that have been given.
He mentioned that they will visit some of these branches and they will actually talk to them and see that they conclude whatever is left for the conference.
The 30th of September has been given as a deadline. Is that enough time for all the branches to go through the processes and ensure that everyone is ready?
He actually emphasized that there is no other alternative. All branches have to meet their deadline, saying even if it can be late, probably a day or two, but they have to meet their deadline to make sure that everything at the time is settled.
What happens if they do not meet the deadline? What happens going forward?
Well, he never mentioned specifically what will happen, but he said they just have to meet the deadline.
Let's go back to the issue of the 15-member task team that will be sent through to KZN, well, in terms of what happens after the appeal. What are they tasked to do to ensure that the two groups start working together and working towards the movement? What exactly, when they get to the region or KZN, what are they tasked to do? Can you just take us through a process?
Yeah.
That's if the SG did take the media through the process.
Yeah, he actually mentioned that though not giving full terms of reference, but all he mentioned was that they have to meet these groups and they have to come to an understanding that whatever outcome or differences that they have to settle them, because if they fail to do that, this might not be the right way to head towards the national conference. So, I mean, the elective conference. So the 15 task member team that he mentioned, he never actually gave full terms of references to what exactly are they going to say. Although he mentioned a point or two that they have to meet with both secretary generals, and they have to meet actually to make sure that whatever they discuss, they come to an agreement.
Now, just before we wrap up, elective conference coming up in December, the impact of what's happening within the ANC with regards to KZN and the divisions. Did he touch on what this might do on elections going forward for the people of South Africa?
No, he actually ruled out any negative impact that this the situation that we find ourselves or they find ourselves in might have on the elections. He said nothing will happen, things will be normal. It's just an exaggeration, that they might have negative impact, but nevertheless, he said nothing would happen.
Lehana, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have to leave it there for now.
Thank you.
And that was our political reporter, Lehana Tsotetsi, joining us in studio.